I investigated 10 flour brands that most American families use every single week, and only 3 of them are actually safe to keep buying. The other 7? Chlorine gas byproducts in your birthday cake batter, a carcinogen that 5 countries have banned, still sitting in bags with no warning label. Pesticide residue in the premium flour you switch to specifically to avoid that problem. These aren't obscure brands. They're the bags you grab without thinking, the ones with the trusted names, the ones your parents used. Starting with the most concerning and working toward the worst offender on the list, then finishing with the 3 that actually cleared every issue. Let's get into it. Number 10. Heckers & Sarasota Unbleached All-Purpose Flour. This is the one Northeastern home bakers pull out when someone asks which flour is actually doing something different from the commodity giants. And honestly, some of that reputation is deserved. Heckers & Sarasota has been milling flour since 1843. The unbleached claim on the bag isn't a recent addition borrowed from the clean eating trend. This brand was milling without bleaching before bleaching became the industry standard. No chlorine gas, no benzoyl peroxide, no alloxan byproduct from the milling process itself. That history is real. But the full picture has a gap. Heckers sources conventionally grown wheat. Conventional wheat farming involves glyphosate at multiple stages of the growing cycle. Glyphosate is the active ingredient in Roundup, and the International Agency for Research on Cancer classifies it as a probable human carcinogen. The Environmental Working Group has detected glyphosate residue in conventional wheat flour through independent laboratory testing. Here's the part that matters. The milling process can't remove what was introduced in the field before the grain ever reached the mill. And Heckers doesn't publish third-party pesticide testing results for consumers to review. For a brand whose entire identity is built on milling more honestly than the commodity giants, that's a real gap between the standard they advertise and the one they can actually verify. The milling is genuinely cleaner. What arrives at that mill from the field? That part hasn't been put in writing for consumers. One question answered clearly. A separate, equally important question left completely open. Number 9. Bob's Red Mill All-Purpose Flour. The founder's face on the back, the stone mill on the packaging, the red plaid that signals natural and small batch before you've read a single word. Bob Moore started this company in 1978 on the principle that whole-grain stone-milled flour was worth doing properly. The face on the back is his actual face. The stone mill reflects the actual milling process. The natural food community responded by making Bob's Red Mill the default premium recommendation for health-conscious shoppers. When someone wanted to do better than gold medal, this was the answer. Now think about what someone paying twice the price of gold medal is actually assuming. They're assuming that everything about this flour, not just the milling method, reflects a higher standard. Here's where that assumption meets the actual product. Bob's Red Mill All-Purpose Flour is made from conventionally grown wheat. The stone milling is genuine. It produces a different texture and a more intact grain structure than roller-milled commodity flour. But the wheat going into that stone mill is the same conventionally grown crop as gold medal. That means the same glyphosate application in the field. And Bob's Red Mill doesn't publish third-party pesticide testing results for the standard all-purpose flour. The founder's face and the stone mill create an impression of comprehensive natural integrity. The wheat sourcing underneath that impression doesn't fully support it. At a commodity price, that gap might be acceptable. At twice the price of gold medal, it's worth knowing before the bag goes in the cart. Number 8. Great Value All-Purpose Flour. The Walmart bag sitting directly beside gold medal on the shelf. Same size, same white packaging, half the price. The implicit promise, same product, better deal, no reason to think twice. Great Value doesn't need its own brand story. It borrows the credibility of every name brand flour sitting next to it. The proximity is the pitch. Here's what the lower price is actually reflecting. Great Value All-Purpose Flour is bleached and enriched. The enrichment, iron, thiamine, riboflavin, niacin, folic acid, is presented on the packaging as a nutritional feature. What the bag doesn't explain is why those additions exist in the first place. The milling process that produces refined white flour strips wheat of its naturally occurring vitamins and minerals entirely. The enrichment isn't a bonus. It's a partial correction for a deficit the production process itself created. The flour is nutritionally damaged by milling. then partially repaired, and the repair is marketed as though it were an upgrade. That's not what most shoppers think they're paying for. Several great value formulations are also bromated. Potassium bromate, banned by the European Union, the United Kingdom, Canada, Brazil, and China, is sitting inside the cheapest flour at the highest volume retailer in the country. Families who can't afford to spend more on flour are the ones most consistently exposed to an ingredient that 5 major international food regulators found concerning enough to prohibit outright. The savings are real. The product behind those savings is not the equivalent of what's sitting next to it on the shelf. 3 brands down, the concerns get more specific from here. And the ownership story gets a lot more interesting. Number 7. Martha White All-Purpose Flour. The name on this bag started as a real little girl. In 1899, Richard Lindsay named his flour brand after his 3-year-old daughter, Martha White Lindsay. That's a genuine founding story. A father proud enough of what he was building to put his daughter's name on it. Martha White carried that personal origin story forward for over a century, building real regional loyalty on exactly that warmth. That story is still on the bag. What changed is everything behind it. J.M. Smucker acquired Martha White. And that detail matters more than it initially seems, because Smucker also owns Robin Hood, which is coming up next, and White Lily, which you'll hear about shortly. 3 separate regional flour institutions, 3 distinct heritage stories on 3 separate bags, 1 corporate procurement operation making the formulation decisions for all of them. Martha White All-Purpose Flour is bleached and enriched. The bleaching process generates the same alloxan byproduct concern present in gold medal. More on alloxan when we get there, because that's the part most people haven't heard. The enrichment adds synthetic vitamins back to partially correct the nutritional stripping the milling process caused, then presents that correction as a feature on the front of the bag. The little girl's name is still on the packaging. The family operation that earned that name is not behind the current formula. A Southern baker who chose Martha White because it felt personal and honest in a way the national brands never managed. The name is still personal. The formula is now corporate. Those are 2 different things sharing one bag. Number 6. Robin Hood All-Purpose Flour. Midwestern households have kept this one in the pantry across 2 and 3 generations without a single conversation about what's on the side panel. Robin Hood doesn't hold its shelf position through advertising or a compelling brand story. It holds it through something more durable than either: pure unexamined habit. The brand has been present in American kitchens long enough that buying it stopped being a decision. It became automatic. Robin Hood All-Purpose Flour is owned by J.M. Smucker, same corporate parent as Martha White. Same parent as White Lily. The flour is bleached in standard formulations. Several varieties are bromated. Potassium bromate, classified as a possible human carcinogen by the International Agency for Research on Cancer, and banned across 5 major international markets. Sitting in a bag that has never once directly disclosed this to the generational customer base buying it without looking. The shopper who's grabbed Robin Hood for 30 years has never been told the bag they reach for by memory may contain that ingredient. It's always been in small text below the fold. But a hand reaching for a familiar bag on a familiar shelf doesn't read the side panel. It never has to. 3 regional flour institutions. 1 Smucker procurement standard running through all of them. If you're buying Robin Hood because it's always been in the house, that's the one reason that's no longer enough. Number 5. White Lily All-Purpose Flour. If you grew up in the American South, this brand isn't just a flour, it's an inheritance. White Lily has been milled since 1883. For over a century, it held a specific, irreplaceable place in Southern cooking. The soft winter wheat, the lower protein content, the texture that made White Lily biscuits structurally different from anything another flour could produce. Southern bakers didn't choose White Lily the way they chose other groceries. They inherited it alongside the recipes that depended on it. Then J.M. Smucker acquired it, and the biscuits stopped working. The milling operation moved from Knoxville, Tennessee, to a facility in Ohio under Smucker's ownership. The soft winter wheat sourcing that defined the White Lily formula was quietly altered as corporate procurement priorities replaced the regional sourcing relationships that had built the brand across a century. The biscuits that Southern families had made for 40 years stopped rising the same way, stopped feeling the same in the hand, stopped matching what the recipe said they should do. Southern baking communities documented the change extensively. Bakers who had never produced a failed biscuit in their lives started failing them consistently with the same flour, from the same looking bag. Smucker made no public announcement. The bag looked identical. The White Lily name stayed on the front. The formula that earned that name over 100 years of Southern kitchens did not. So, the problem here isn't just chemistry. It's a product that was genuinely changed without telling the people who depended on it. If this investigation is useful so far, a quick like helps more people find it. Number 4. King Arthur All-Purpose Flour, the serious baker's choice. The premium bag, the brand that built its identity on being a categorically different product from the commodity giants, and within home baking communities, largely succeeded in making that case. King Arthur has been milling since 1790, employee-owned, unbleached, printed prominently on the front of every bag. For health-conscious bakers who wanted something better than gold medal and Pillsbury, this became the answer. And on the bleaching question, the brand genuinely delivers. Unbleached is accurate. No chlorine gas, no benzoyl peroxide, no alloxan byproduct from the milling process. That part is real. But here's what the premium price implies. An answer to, without actually providing one. King Arthur All-Purpose Flour is made from conventionally grown wheat. Conventional wheat farming involves glyphosate application at multiple points in the growing cycle. The International Agency for Research on Cancer classifies glyphosate as a probable human carcinogen. The Environmental Working Group has detected glyphosate residue in conventional wheat flour through independent laboratory testing. And King Arthur doesn't publish third-party pesticide testing results for consumers to review. Unbleached answers what happened during milling. It says nothing about what happened in the field before that wheat arrived at the mill. Those are two completely separate questions. The King Arthur bag answers one of them loudly on the front. The other was never raised, and this is where the label starts to feel misleading. Not because it says anything false, but because the word unbleached does a lot of trust-building work for a supply chain question it doesn't actually address. The baker who paid the premium, expecting a comprehensive upgrade, deserved both answers, not just one. Number 3. Pillsbury All-Purpose Flour. The doughboy, the giggle, that little poke in the belly that made a commodity ingredient feel like family before a single word on the bag was read. Pillsbury built one of the most effective brand characters in American food advertising history. The doughboy didn't just sell flour. He created an emotional association that made the product feel inherently safe and domestic. Generations of parents baked Pillsbury recipes for their children because the character communicated warmth before any ingredient was considered. Here's what was behind that character. Pillsbury All-Purpose Flour is bromated at traffic damage. Potassium bromate is added to strengthen gluten structure and improve rise during baking. It's cost-effective, and it works technically. The International Agency for Research on Cancer classifies it as a possible human carcinogen. The European Union banned it. The United Kingdom banned it. Canada banned it. Brazil banned it. China banned it. In 1991, the FDA formally asked flour manufacturers to voluntarily stop using it. Pillsbury did not stop. There is no warning label on a Pillsbury bag disclosing this. The front shows a smiling cartoon character. The word bromated appears in small text on the ingredient list below where most shoppers ever look. The character was the marketing. The formula was the fine print. Those two things have been sharing the same bag for more than 30 years. That's not fear-mongering. It's just the record. 5 major international food regulators made a call. The US didn't follow, and the brand never brought it up. Number 2. Softasilk Cake Flour. This is the one parents reach for when the occasion matters. Birthday cakes, wedding cakes, holiday layer cakes that took all day to build and needed to be right. The silky, ultra-fine texture implied something elevated. A flour produced to a higher standard for the moments that deserved more than ordinary. General Mills makes Softasilk, same corporation behind Gold Medal. And here's where this brand moves past everything else on the avoid list, because the chemistry here is more intensive than anything we've covered so far. That silky texture isn't an artisanal milling achievement. It's the direct result of an intensive chlorination process applied specifically during cake flour production. The chlorination for cake flour is considerably more extensive than the bleaching applied to standard all-purpose flour. The chlorine exposure is higher. The contact time with wheat proteins is longer. The alloxan byproduct that gold metal generates through standard bleaching is produced at elevated levels through the more intensive chlorination that creates soft-to-silk's texture. The softness and the chemistry are not two separate features. They are the same process. A finer texture and a higher concentration of chemical byproduct produced simultaneously. The silkier the flour, the more intensive the chlorination behind it. The parent who chose soft-to-silk for every important occasion because the professional quality result felt like doing something genuinely special. Nobody told them the birthday cake flour was the most heavily chlorinated product in the entire lineup. The texture was real, the process that created it was never mentioned. Number 1. Gold Medal All-Purpose Flour. The red and blue bag on American shelves since 1880. In more kitchen cabinets, more holiday baking projects, more first-time bread recipes than any other flour brand in the country's history. Gold Medal didn't build that position through advertising alone. It built it through time. Enough time that the name stopped being evaluated and started being assumed. The word gold does something specific before a single ingredient is read. It implies a standard has already been verified by someone with the authority to verify it. Parents baked with it because their parents baked with it. Questioning gold medal felt like questioning baking itself. Here's what the gold standard actually contains. Gold medal all-purpose flour is bleached. The bleaching process uses benzoyl peroxide and in some formulations chlorine gas. When chlorine gas contacts the proteins inside wheat flour, a chemical reaction occurs. That reaction produces a byproduct called alloxan. Alloxan is not a household word. It's a laboratory word. It's the compound scientists use specifically to induce diabetes in rodents during research studies. The mechanism is precise. Alloxan destroys the pancreatic beta cells responsible for producing insulin. Researchers use it because it reliably eliminates that biological function in test animals. That byproduct exists in trace amounts inside bleached flour. The FDA has not established a specific limit for it. The gold medal bag does not mention it. The word bleached appears in small print. The word alloxan appears nowhere on the packaging. General Mills owns Gold Medal, managing one of the largest food portfolios in the country, where every production decision is driven by cost efficiency at scale. Bleaching flour artificially is faster and cheaper than allowing it to age and oxidize naturally. The gold on the bag communicates quality. The bleaching chemistry behind it communicates volume production. Those are two different things. They've been sharing the same label for over a century. And the home baker who's used that bag for 30 years without a reason to question it, the name felt like a guarantee. Nobody with any institutional authority ever said it was. Now that you know what's in those bags, here are the 3 that actually held up. Best option number 3. Jovial Organic Einkorn All-Purpose Flour. Jovial didn't start with a flour formula. It started with a question 1. A surprising number of people have asked themselves, quietly, without finding a satisfying answer. Why does modern wheat make so many people feel the way it does? Einkorn is the original wheat, the variety that existed before every hybridization cycle, every yield optimization program, and every industrial farming practice that shaped the conventional wheat supply into what it is today. Jovial sources its einkorn from small, certified organic farms in Italy. No bleaching, no bromating, no glyphosate, no synthetic enrichment added back to correct damage the milling process caused. The nutritional profile of the wheat is intact because nothing in the production chain destroyed it first. Einkorn's genetic structure hasn't been altered by decades of yield-focused development the way modern wheat varieties have been. It contains a different gluten composition that a significant number of people with conventional wheat sensitivity report tolerating without the same response. That's not a medical claim. It's a consistent pattern documented in communities of people who made the switch. For the baker who kept feeling worse after baking and could never identify a clear reason, Jovial removes every variable from the avoidable list simultaneously. One bag, around $8 to $10 for 32 ounces at Whole Foods, Sprouts, and directly through Jovial's website, starts with a wheat variety that predates every problem on this list. For a lot of people, That's where the search ends. Best option number 2. 1 Degree Organic Sprouted Wheat Flour. Most brands that charge a premium ask you to trust them. 1 Degree built its entire model around making that ask unnecessary. Every bag of 1 Degree Organic Sprouted Wheat Flour ships with a QR code. Scan it, and the brand shows you the specific farm that grew the wheat in that bag. The farmer's name, the geographic location, the growing practices used. Not a general sourcing region, not a certification badge from a third party most consumers have never investigated. The specific farm. No other flour brand on this list offers anything close to that level of accountability. Not the premium brands, not the regional institutions, not the brands charging more for the implication of a cleaner supply chain. The wheat is certified organic, no glyphosate, no synthetic pesticides. The sprouting process increases the bioavailability of nutrients in the flour and reduces phytic acid, the compound in conventional flour that actively inhibits mineral absorption during digestion. The result is a flour that delivers more nutritional value per serving than enriched conventional flour. Not because synthetic vitamins were added back after milling, but because the production process preserved what the wheat contained from the start. Around $7 to $9 for 32 ounces at Whole Foods, Sprouts, and through 1 Degree's website directly. 1 bag, 1 QR code, 1 specific farm. That's a fundamentally different relationship between a brand and a buyer than anything on the avoid list offered. Best option number 1. Sunrise Flour Mill Organic Heritage Wheat Flour. Sunrise Flour Mill exists because the founders ran the same audit you just watched and couldn't find a flour on any shelf that passed it. The owners developed wheat sensitivities and spent years trying to identify why conventional flour brands, including premium ones, kept producing the same response regardless of which bag they purchased. They traced it back to the wheat itself. Modern hybridized varieties, glyphosate residue from conventional growing, bleaching byproducts from the milling process, and a pattern that held across every brand they evaluated. Resolve one concern. Quietly maintain another. King Arthur cleared the bleaching question and left the glyphosate question open. Bob's Red Mill changed the milling method and left the wheat sourcing unchanged. No single bag cleared everything at once. So, they built the flour themselves. Sunrise sources certified organic heritage wheat varieties, small batch milling, no bleaching, no bromating, no glyphosate. Their sourcing and testing standards are published publicly, available for any consumer to verify independently without taking the brand's word for it. That last part is what separates Sunrise from every premium brand on the avoid list that asks for trust without providing documentation. For the baker who's been reading flour labels for years and kept finding that every upgrade solved one problem while a new one quietly appeared, Sunrise is where that process stops. Every concern on the avoid list addressed in one bag around $9 to $12 for 5 pounds, available directly through Sunrise Flour Mill's website and at select natural food retailers. The founders couldn't find this flour anywhere on any shelf, so they built it themselves. That tells you more about what it actually takes to clear this list than any marketing claim could. 10 brands investigated, 3 worth keeping. Gold Medal, Pillsbury, Soft as Silk, King Arthur, White Lily, Robin Hood, Martha White, Bob's Red Mill, Heckers, Great Value, Chlorine Gas, Benzoyl Peroxide, Potassium Bromate, Glyphosate Residue, Synthetic Enrichment correcting damage the production process caused. Marketed as a nutritional feature across every single bag on that list in one combination or another. 10 brands, the same pattern repeated. Jovial, 1 Degree, Sunrise Flour Mill. 3 brands that proved clean flour with a verifiable supply chain isn't a niche fantasy. It's been on shelves the whole time. The 10 brands dominating the market simply never had to compete on that standard because almost nobody was asking the question out loud at the shelf. You're asking it now. Everything your family bakes starts with flour. The birthday cakes, the holiday bread, the Saturday morning pancakes. Every single one of them starts with whatever is in that bag on your counter. Go check the label. Read what's printed on the side panel. Then ask what isn't printed there at all. Make sure what goes into that bowl is worth building a meal around. If this changed how you think about what's in your pantry, share it with one person who's still grabbing the red and blue bag on autopilot, because it's always been there, and nobody ever gave them a reason to look closer. Stay sharp, Read those labels. Keep rising.